Welcome, everyone. I'm Rose Jeffrey with Robert Cooper Audubon, the current president, and we welcome everyone to Robert Cooper Audubon 42nd Conservation Award Ceremony. We're deeply grateful for all in our community who work to preserve our environment. Tonight, we wish to honor 5 individuals who have improved the natural environment for us all. Our honorees work across East Central Indiana. Their work shows a passion for education, native species, preservation of habitats, both land and riparian habitats. Robert Cooper Audubon is a volunteer organization. Our overarching goal is to protect and enhance the quality of natural environment. We offer educational programs, field trips, service opportunities, and this annual event. We cannot do this without an active, very hardworking board, and I'd like to have our board members stand as I read their names. There's Catherine Kubo is our vice president. Jim Flowers is our treasurer. Elizabeth Plogue is our recording secretary. She's unable to be here tonight. Brian Wolf is one of our directors, as is Julie Bruner, Jim Shoey, and Christy Tuttle, who is ill today. Other committee chairs include Jeff Ray, Abby Shaw, Barb Stedman, Doris Cheney, there in the corner, Martha Hunt, and Kamal Islam, who's also sick today, so could not be here. Thank you. We feel that it's very important to recognize our local conservation heroes, and that's what this evening is about. We also like to have a little raffle in between presentations to kind of help move things along. So you all should have a raffle ticket, and there's a prize table there between presentations. We'll be reading raffle numbers, and you can collect a prize if you're a winner. Our first award is the Charles D. Wise Youth Conservation Award. This recognizes a young person who has done significant conservation work before the age of 18. Our awardee this year is Chasen Brown. Here to introduce Chasen and present his prize is Ryan Smith. Ryan will return to the podium as our Phyllis U. Hall Wildlife Habitat Presentation Award winner. But for now, he's here to present Chasen.
Good evening. It is my responsibility, but also pleasure to introduce to you Chasen Brown. He is a very motivated young man, tackling his Eagle Scout project at the age of 16. He and his team invested more than 180 hours in this service project that benefited the wetlands. But I'll let him talk more about that. So please welcome Chasen Brown.
Good evening. I'm Chasen Brown, and for my Eagle project, I built boot brushes at 3 different locations in the Limberlost area. The goal of this project was to prevent the spread of invasive species. Seeds get caught on the treads of people's shoes, and the boot brush scrapes off those seeds before they even get into the trails. This helps native plants thrive without invasive species stealing the nutrients. Here's an example of one of my boot brushes and the sign. It tells the public why they should scrape their shoes and examples of invasive species like garlic mustard and Japanese stilt grass. The 3 different locations where I built them was the Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve near Bryant, Indiana, the Limberlost Swamp Nature Preserve near Geneva, Indiana, and the Limberlost Bird Sanctuary Nature Preserve, also near Bryant, Indiana. Here I presented my proposal to the Friends of the Limberlost, where I requested funding. My proposed budget was $300. The budget included things like lumber, gravel, and concrete. The total actual cost was around $277. With Ryan's help, the local regional ecologist, the Indiana DNR provided the signs and boot brushes for my project. The timeline started in March where we started planning. However, the materials from the DNR took a long time to arrive. So we actually started building July 14th, 2025. At a scout troop meeting, we built the frames where the gravel was kept. And then July 26th, we actually started on work site where we put in the poles, the ground, and put them in concrete. Then August 8th, we poured the last bit of gravel and the boot brushes were ready for the guests to use. Before we could start building, Ryan and I went to each site and planned where to put them. Here's the Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve, the Limberlost Swamp Nature Preserve, and the Limberlost Bird Sanctuary. Here's us building the frame at our scout troop meeting. This would hold the post up and all the gravel. Here's the first on-site build at the Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve. We had to dig the holes manually. We tried getting an automatic one, but we couldn't. But I think it was better that we did it manually. We had to put in support beams to help keep it standing overnight. Day 2, we leveled the ground and finished building the frame to hold the gravel. We cut the post at a 45-degree angle for the sign to mount it. And here's the finished product at the Limberlost Marsh Nature Preserve. Some friends of Limberlost came to visit us at the Limberlost Swamp on a work day. And all 3 of the boot brushes had the same procedure. So here are the other 2 finished ones. Some challenges we faced is at one site, someone stole our buckets and poured the gravel on the ground. And then at a different site, someone stole our gravel and left our buckets. Then at each site, they had different types of soil. So it was easy at some, but difficult at others. And then at the last and final site, we cross-threaded some bolts. So we had to buy new ones. Here's some before and after photos of each location. Here's the Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve, the Limberlost Swamp Nature Preserve, and the Limberlost Bird Sanctuary. Here's all 3 finished posts with all the gravel. The total service hours for the project, including planning, driving, and actual work, was 182 hours. Thank you to the Friends of Limberlost for funding my project, Ryan Smith for helping me guide, and my troop members, leaders, and volunteers for the work, and my grandparents, Betty and Steve Drinkett, for helping me throughout my entire scouting career. Any questions?
What would you do different next time?
Plan better. Most of the planning was like a day before. I don't know how long they last, but I know you're able to replace them easily. Thank you.
We have a slight raffle snafu. Being a very shoestring budgeted operation, we were supposed to tear each ticket in half. And so if you would tear your ticket in half, someone will be around to collect the other half, and we will proceed with the drawing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yes, watch all of them here.
We might have to
Stand up here.
Okay, I think we're ready for our first drawing. 669-187. Six, 187. Lois.
Like, I didn't realize that we had beginning I should have. No, I didn't realize that. This I got one. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Our next award is the Clyde W. Hibbs Conservation Education Award. This recognizes excellence in educating children, youth, and/or adults on conservation issues and practices. This year's winner of this award is Diana Bowman. Ginger. Yay! To introduce Diana and present her award, we have Annette Rose, immediate past president of Robert Cooper Audubon.
Diana, would you join me? Given the current environmental stressors of overconsumption, habitat loss, pollution, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and climate change, I must wholeheartedly agree with Colleen Wilcox, who asserted that teaching is the greatest act of optimism.
Insanity.
With numerous outstanding education awards, our 2025 Conservation Education Award recipient, Diana Bowman, is the embodiment of positivism, enthusiasm, hopefulness, and stewardship. Through 3 decades of formal teaching at Ivy Tech, public schools in Hagerstown and Newcastle. The teacher does not adequately describe Diana's professional goal and her impact. In the vein of Robert Frost, her role is an awakener. Diana, and I quote her, educates others to see the world around them with new eyes. Diana's high school lab is a conservatory packed full of plants and animals and discovery land for so many high school students. Her laboratory has extended to rainforests across the world in the Amazon, Costa Rica, and Argentina, as she has taken groups of students on international study trips. Her awakener role was especially apparent to me when I first met Diana and her students at the Cool Climate Fest in Newcastle in May of 2023. During this community-based event, her students presented informative presentations and displays. They demonstrated ways that they could make a difference in the world and showed people what the consequences of their actions were. Thanks to, in part, to Diana and her environmental students, the Cool Climate Fest is a success this year. This makes 3 years running. And they've taught citizens of that county and those in attendance about conservation issues. And just this fall, Diana led us, members of Robert Cooper Audubon, out to Summit Lake State Park, along with, what was it, 40?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, 40 high school students on bird walks. We had binoculars. We walked for miles through prairies and woods and shoreline. And of course, we saw migrating blackbirds and bald eagles. And we talked a lot about how the habitat supported these different birds. It is with such great pleasure that I invite Diane to share more about the wonderful things that she's doing.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you. Well, that was a lot. Does everyone have their orange? You come to class prepared. All right, a few years ago, there was a spaceship called the Voyager, one of the Voyagers. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2. And it was just getting ready to leave the solar system. And right before it left the solar system, there were some scientists that said, whoa, 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 wait. Before you turn off the camera, make it turn around and take one last picture. And so we took a picture of the Earth from the edge of the solar system. Now, this isn't the actual picture because the actual picture is, well, this is a picture of the Earth just outside the rings of Saturn. But the picture that we have from the edge of the solar system just shows this teeny tiny little dot, almost like a seed. And when you think about that, our ability to look back and see ourselves from so far away, how cool that really is. And so we're going to consider the orange just for a minute here. I know this is not an orange. They're cuties. They were buy one, get one free bag, okay? So stay with me here. And if you would like to peel your orange, feel free to do so. This is a full sensory activity going on right now. As you do, we're going to just look at some of the things about oranges. First of all, oranges are a hybrid cross between a pomelo and a mandarin. They were first cultivated 2,000 years ago in India, thanks Shibu, and Vietnam and India. My son-in-law is from India. And the skin of an orange contains a compound called limonene. And limonene is used for cleaning products and perfumes. And you can probably smell so good already. Brazil, believe it or not, is the world's largest producer of oranges. And oranges are a part of the Rutaceae family, along with lemons, limes, and grapefruits. And no one's surprised by that, right? Something else, orange trees can get very, very large, and they can even live for over 100 years. The largest orange ever measured weighed 7.7 pounds. When I was a kid, my mom used to come in the living room with oranges, and she'd say, "Does anybody want an orange?" And we'd say, "I want one." And she'd go, I wouldn't want her to throw a 7.7 pound one at me. Oranges help improve digestion, they regulate blood sugar, and they promote heart health. Orange essential oils are used in aromatherapy, and they reduce stress, they improve mood, and they increase mental acuity. We all know this, right? Oranges, you guys, they're a gift from our planet. They're abundant. And they show us nature's simplicity, its abundance. They're nutritious, they're refreshing, and versatile fruits that have stood the test of time. Now, I didn't realize it when I bought these because the next part was supposed to be the seed. And I guess that's why they were buy one, get one free. I don't know. Let's pretend like there's a seed in there just for a second, okay? That was the plan. It was supposed to be a seed. But you've probably all seen an orange seed before. Now think about a seed just for a minute. A seed is alive. A seed contains an embryo and it breathes. It has instructions from ancestors. It has a message of resilience and wonder, a potential for abundance, and a plan and a hope for future. Seeds are pretty cool. Well, seeds come in lots of different places and ways and things like that. And our job as humans is to plant seeds as well. And without crying, I'm going to mention my grandparents here for just a minute. My grandparents did not get an environmental science degree. They did not. I don't even. Well, no, they didn't. They didn't have any kind of formal training whatsoever. But they planted seeds in me, and they made me love the planet. The things they taught me, they took me on fossil hunts, trail hiking, gardening, canning, caving. Well, just Mammoth Cave. We went to Mammoth Cave a lot to the snowball dining room and places like that. But foraging, my grandma used to take me out looking for ginseng. My grandma actually taught me how to go into woods, but nobody wants to talk about that. She's a good teacher. The real life love for the environment came from my grandparents. They planted that seed in me. And my job now is to plant seed again. I became the fruit, and I contain the seeds that I give to my students and to people around me. You also have seeds, unlike this goofy orange. Okay. So who planted your seed? Think about it. What made you love what you do and adore this planet and work hard to make sure that our planet is conserved and preserved and perpetuated? Who was it that did that to you? Have you thanked them? If they're around. Thanks, Grandma, Papa. What seeds have you planted? I'm not the only teacher here. Y'all are teachers too. We're all a little crazy. What seeds are you planting? What can you do to plant that and pass that on, that living embryo, that zeal and love for the environment? Well, there's a couple different kinds of seeds. Well, actually, there's a lot of seeds. But there's this thing that teachers always live for. It's the aha moment. And we always love the aha moment. That's when a student finally gets something. Oh, they can do it now. Yes. Oh, I think I see it. I got it. I had an aha moment one time here at the campus of Ball State when I was an undergrad, and it was in calculus class. I was sitting there. It was night class. There's a Ball State basketball game getting ready to happen. And I'm sitting there in class and I'm like, oh, and I could see everybody walk into the arena. And I'm like, oh, come on. And the professor's up there, I don't know, making second derivatives and all kinds of parabolas and things like that. And all of a sudden, I didn't know what was going to happen to me. It was like the curtains just pulled back, like on a theater stage. And I got it. I understood calculus. No! And it was so scary. I started like sweating and like, oh no. And then luckily it kind of, came back together. I went, oh, shoo, that was close. Just for a minute there. But those are aha moments, right? Well, I have a story to tell you. It's a true story. My daughter Mallory, if she was here, she would verify this. I promise. I don't exaggerate at all. Okay. So one night we were in Costa Rica and I had a group of students with me and we missed the ferry. So we had to take the night ferry and the night ferry went across the Gulf of Nicoya and we landed in Pacara on the other side and it was completely dark. And Costa Rica dark is not like Indianapolis dark. You know what I'm saying? So it's very dark. And then we went to a private reserve called the Kuru Reserve. It's owned by a lady who's about 200 years old, and she doesn't believe in outdoor lighting. So it's really, really dark, and it is a thick nature preserve jungle. About every 200 or 300 yards, there's a cabin. So we are driving along this lane, with the grass hump in the middle in the bus, and the bus would kind of like angle the headlights towards the door so we could kind of get the key in the keyhole. And then the first cabin was for the girls. The girls get off the bus going, where's your cabin at? I'm just the next cabin. Don't be afraid. I didn't know where it was, but you just pretend. So we let them in. We flip on the light into their cabin. Immediately people start screaming. They start screaming because inside there's all these crabs. They're like, blah, blah, blah. And they're just running like all over the floor and they're scurrying under the beds and they're running out of the bathroom and the girls are like, oh, stop, what are we gonna do? And they're freaking out and screaming, We finally got them to settle down enough. It's okay. It's the sun will come up and when it does, we'll run away. Okay. I didn't know it was going to be that. It was pretty rustic. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little freaked out too, but I didn't, I faked it. There were quatties that were outside. A quatty is a quatamundi. They're kind of like a raccoon monkey thing. And when they fight with each other, it's terrifying. You know that someone just died. And they were all outside and they're just doing this thing and they were stealing stuff and it was super creepy. And the kids were just screaming. They were scared to death. This was their cabin on the inside. That's luxury accommodations right here, like these mattresses that look like, well, never mind. We slept with our clothes on, and anyway, it was a situation. Well, then we got to our cabin, the adults were in a cabin, and all of a sudden we hear another scream, a huge shriek, and then we hear the girls, and they're freaking out. And one of the girls found one of these on her bed. That is a scorpion spider. It's not a scorpion. And it's not even really it's not dangerous at all. And they're super cool under a UV light. They actually glow. It's kind of cool. I mean, in a nerd kind of way, but not at that moment because that thing, when she started screaming, it scurried away and then they couldn't find it. Yeah. So for the next hour, every once in a while, we'd hear a scream or a shriek or, that sort of thing. And it was going to be a long night, a very long. finally, after a while, I think they all kind of like, got in their positions and just kind of waited for the sun to come up. And we kind of did the same thing. We're like, oh, what have we done? This is crazy. Why are we here? And then one of the ladies, whoops, back it up. I messed it up. One of the ladies messed that up. I'm so sorry. She said, do you hear that? We all got real quiet. Whoosh, whoosh. What is that? I don't know. It kind of sounds like a beach. Whoosh, whoosh. I think it is. I think it's a beach. Do you think it's like on the other side of those really big bushes over there? I think maybe. Let's go try. So we all linked our elbows. There's crabs everywhere, We got our cell phone flashlights and we're like, oh, doing this thing. And we walked, stepped over stuff and tripped on coconuts and whatever. And then the beach opened up. And what we saw was the most amazing thing. This is not my picture. This is Google image. Okay, you understand. I didn't take pictures of it. The beach was glowing. There was phosphorescent bacteria in the water, or bioluminescence. The water was very, very still, just barely breaking on the beach. There were little puddles on the beach, and they were glowing and flashing. The sky was completely, perfectly clear, and you could see reflections of the stars on the beach in the puddles that were glowing. It was crazy. So we all stood there and went, we have to go get the kids. Let's go. So we locked elbows again and we went down to the cabin where the kids were. Come on, you guys, you gotta go, And they're like, they're freaking out again, We're, no, really, you gotta come see this, And we brought them out onto that beach and they were screaming and crying and shrieking the whole way. And we got them out there and what they saw left them speechless. They just stood there like statues and just frozen. And then all of a sudden you start hearing, and then they start hugging each other and like, oh, what's going on? This is so beautiful. You know what? That was not an aha moment. That was an aha moment. That's different. That's a moment they're never going to forget. That's a what? What did you do, Miss Bo, when you brought us to like the set of Avatar or something? What's going on here? It was so cool. It makes us feel more connected to the world and lead to greater creativity and respect for our planet. Those seeds of awe, that's where it's at. This was that beach during the day. Seriously, Gilligan's Island. Okay, there was even like an abandoned boat laying on its side, like up near the trees. And this whole private beach was ours. Like there was nothing else going on there. And so the kids just, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't stop staring at it the whole time. It's really cool. So planting seeds. How are you planting seeds? How do I plant seeds? Well, there's lots of different ways, and most of it has to do with just understanding our role. Our role is to introduce people to the environment. We're matchmakers, not teachers. We're matchmakers. You just kind of put them together and watch the sparks fly. And you never know. Some people get really excited about baby turtles. Some people get excited about other things. Moments of awe. That's what you're going for. Those are the cool seeds. Seeds of wonder. Seeds of exploration. By the way, this young man here with the beard, I took him to Costa Rica last year, and one night we stayed in an area, and it had paths all through the jungle, and I went to bed. I was tired. I've been here before. I woke up in the morning and went outside, and he's sitting on a bench with like glazed over eyes, just sitting there. I said, "Are you okay? Are you sick?" "I stayed up all night and I couldn't stop looking at stuff." He literally stayed up all night. I'm like, "You get out in the jungle all night? What if you were killed? There's caiman out here." And he goes, "It was so cool. Like, I took a picture of some caiman." I'm like, "Oh my God." Don't make me fill out forms, okay? I don't like to fill out forms. Anyway, seeds of exploration, seeds of experience, taking people places they have never been, letting them touch things that maybe they were afraid of before, okay? Seeds of creativity. This young woman graduated from Ball State University a few years ago. She's a filmmaker. You know what she's doing right there? She's filming baby snowball-shaped white bats that are living underneath that tropical leaf right there. She videoed the whole time we were down there. Wow. Seeds of other cultures. We spend time with other cultures and how they handle the environment and what they do. Seeds of things you never know that people are going to fall in love with. And people you get to meet all over the world that share that zeal and that love for the environment. All right, seeds of friendship. These are, we got pretty close and tight there. They're gonna have to be kind of friendly, you know what I'm saying? I pass out Swedish fish, little candy Swedish fish. And I said, listen, you have to stay sweet and you have to stay flexible, okay? So if you get, you know, if you're feeling like you're not, eat some of these emergency Swedish fish, it'll help. It's a joke, but whatever. Okay, going places. These are mostly Costa Rica pictures, but it doesn't have to be in just Costa Rica where you meet the environment. These are leatherback turtles. I take students here, and when a nesting turtle like this comes up on the beach, she digs a big nest, and we sneak up behind her. Wait till she's done. We sneak up. Well, we're wearing dark colors, and because we don't want to scare her. And then when she starts laying her eggs, then we catch them. And then we take them back to a protected area so that poachers can't dig them up and, you know, do what they do with eggs. So we do this, and I've had students be able to actually be right there and hold onto her fins while she's laying eggs. It's really cool. There's that kid again. This one got attacked by a killer starfish. Oh, by the way, this particular student right here, he now leads nature walks at Dr. Helen Stussey's Prairie. And when I took my students out there this year, he was our lead person and he knew everything. And that was so cool, so very cool, because when he was a student in high school, it wasn't like that. Nurturing love for our planet is something that we're all responsible for doing. And we do it in lots of different ways. Me, apparently holding creepy bugs that my mom's so proud of. Maybe not. Taking people on big trips. I'm pretty good at that. Some people aren't. Some people like to stay home. Watering those seeds with wonder. If we're wondering, then other people are going to wonder as well. And that's what we need to do. We need to be honest and open with how much we love the environment around us. And if we are, it's contagious. And other people will catch on. We're introducing them to nature. The sparks will fly. I'm really good at catching red-eyed tree frogs, so I had to show that picture because I'm proud of the fact that I can always spot them and catch them. Now, sometimes seeds are planted in the classroom, and these are some students who are getting ready for a climate festival and doing all kinds of crazy stuff in there, and they're just excited. They're excited to be in that class. It's not an academic class necessarily. I give them tests, but whatever. It's more of a class to introduce them to what kinds of concepts they might latch onto and find out more about. This is, again, I'm holding a lizard or something. I'm always holding something. This is my classroom. We do a project every year called the Terrarium Project. And this particular young lady, she took a cake plate and she built her terrarium, and then she put the glass top over the top of it. And that thing lasted like 4 years. But she was really proud of it. The only thing that killed it was that it got dropped. But it was beautiful, and she was so proud of it too. But the kids all make terrariums, and then I talked to them about that pale blue dot, you know, that little speck in the space sky. Or I don't know if you can say space sky. In space, let's say that. And when they build a terrarium, it has to contain everything in order to survive. And if it's missing something, it won't make it. And so it's almost like looking at a miniature Earth, you know, and they have to make sure that they have everything in there that it needs in order to function and survive and grow. These are some students planting some actual seeds for our garden. And I don't know, some students looking through an aquarium. I have lots of aquariums in my room, and I don't know who that creepy person is in the back. That was kind of weird, but I'm always creeping somewhere. Seeds of empowerment. Sometimes students need to just know that they're authorized to do something. And a lot of times we just say, okay, just go over here, I gotta get this done. And we don't let them go ahead and take charge and be responsible for maybe doing something awesome. I took a group of students to the Ohio River, and we met an organization there called Living Lands and Waters, and they have a barge. Actually, it's a double barge, it's huge. And the guy that owns it, his name is Chad Progracki. And you may have seen him, he's been on CNN a lot of times. He's removed more trash from the river basins, the Ohio, the Mississippi, the Missouri, than anyone in like could even imagine. Just tons and tons and tons. We have over a ton of trash that we removed in one afternoon, piled up in this John boat. One thing that we did find was a partially submerged riding tractor, and the kids would not give up until they had that thing out of the ground. Seeds of application and completion. This is my Envirothon team. We have a state Envirothon contest, and every March, my students go and compete against other teams. We compete against other teams. We just go because it's really cool. And these are students in a competition at that moment, and they're trying to identify different pelts. And we also had a table that had different birds and different kinds of tracks and things like that, and they have to identify those things in the competition. And then here's our Envirothon participants. We got third place. Very excited about that. Last year we missed going to state by one question, and it was a question about mangrove trees. One of the students accidentally said that Indiana had mangrove trees. And we knew it, like as soon as the competition was over, he said, "We don't have mangroves." I said, "No, we don't have mangroves." And he goes, "Ah." And when we found out that we missed going to state finals by 1 point, we all went, "Mangroves." He's like, "I'm sorry, guys." But you know, it's a really fun competition, and we were fine with it. The kids, again, we were touring Franklin College. Seeds in the woods. I'm very passionate about forestry, and I love to take the kids out in the woods all the time. This is at Trojan Woods, and this is a group of students. And I don't know if you've read, I forget the guy's name. I was going to look this up. He wrote a book called The Last Child in the Woods. Does anybody know what that author's name was? Richard Loup. Okay. He wrote a book called Last Child in the Woods, and he talks about how kids these days, I shouldn't say that, I hate that. Students don't go in the woods. They don't go outside. And I had students every year when I take them out, walking on uneven ground is a challenge for some students. And not because they have some kind of physical inability, it's because they don't walk on anything but sidewalks and floors. And it's really sad, but it's also really cool to watch them finally get out there and check things out and start to relax and have fun. So there we go. They're all walking on uneven ground there for sure. Seeds on the farm. Yeah, absolutely. So these students are learning how to actually milk cows, and then we made cheese afterwards with some enzymes and just some fresh farmer's cheese. It's really fun. Seeds in the river. I love to take students to rivers, and we do the Hoosier River Watch program. We take them out and they get to, I mean, we're not doing that there, obviously, we're being crazy there. But we go out and we monitor the water qualities. We look at benthic macroinvertebrates. We look at all kinds of things, riparian zones and stuff. So just introducing them to rivers. And sometimes we wade in the rivers just for fun. Sometimes we ride on boats in rivers. These two students, I went ahead and kept this picture in here because both of these students have autism. And having them outside, touching things, being around things that have weird textures and it's just unexpected. It's really a lot of work. But at the same time, the seeds that we plant, oh my gosh, they just rave about what we do. And the boy, this will be his third time to go to Costa Rica with me. He just loves it so much, and his mom is so thankful that he's gone from to okay, when are we leaving? And he's been empowered. He loves it. Again, I've got too many pictures in here, so I'm just going to keep talking and move along. So I've been on lots of adventures with lots of students over lots of times. This is the Newcastle Climate Festival when we have that. And yes, this is our we've done it for multiple years now. We will be doing it again this May. I'm very excited about that. The students are super proud of this program. We do community service programs a lot around. And these are American chestnut trees. We partnered with Purdue University and the U.S. Department of Forestry, and we have actual American chestnuts. And this year, I actually harvested the first chestnuts off of those trees. By the way, do that with leather gloves. Ow! Oh, I had no idea. But anyway, so these American chestnuts are in Osborne Park, and they're doing fantastically. Again, some more pictures from Climate Festival. I got too many pictures. Seeds in our schoolyard. You can see this little plot right here. I got permission from our principal. He always gets nervous when I walk in. I say, "Excuse me, I have an idea." And he goes, he never knows what's going to happen. And I say, "Can I have that plot out there? You know, the one that looks like it's dead." And he's like, "That's fine. Go ahead. What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about it." That's what we did with it. This is the night garden. My students worked on this for quite a while. And yeah, so we built a raised bed garden out there. And it's pretty cool. And the kids had an amazing time doing it. Well, some of them did. I'm not sure if those guys did, but anyway, pretty cool. And then Seeds on the Prairie. I don't know if you know Dr. Helen Susie, but she has an amazing prairie, and I recommend strongly that you go and check it out. She loves to show it to people. Get ready to spend a couple hours because she won't stop. Like, she just wants to show you everything. It's pretty cool. But I take students out there every year, and what I have them do is they have to collect photos of 25 different native prairie plants, and then they have to put it in a presentation. And so it's a pretty cool project for them. It's really challenging, but they end up always loving it. So here he is getting a picture of the compass plan. And then finally, the coup de grace, right? The most recent project, we took students and we planted some seeds in the air. We went birding. I've wanted to do this forever. And we finally got it done. I had written a grant for a class set of binoculars, and we brought those out, and we had the most amazing birders go out with us. Thank you so much. You know who you are. And anyway, just had an incredible time. And again, students who would never go outside. And here they are. Is that an osprey or an eagle? I can't tell. That was an actual debate that we had about something. We realized later it was an osprey. But students just had an incredible time and good times. So I'm going to kind of move on a little bit here. Hey, who's that? Told you were on here. Where'd she go? Oh, somebody's still on the food. Watch out. Oh, there she saw you. Okay, so teaching about the environment. That's a responsibility for all of us. It's not just for teachers. Soil is everywhere. It's fertile. It needs seeds. Spread your love of the environment. Spread what you know. Spread your excitement for the environment. People will pick that up. That's fertile and it'll grow. Okay. Last thing, this is Christy Reddick and Dr. Nancy Troutman. I don't know if you know Dr. Nancy Troutman or not. Probably not Christy Reddick. Christy is an entomologist. She works at University of Cincinnati. And Dr. Nancy Troutman is from the Cornell University, or Cornell Birds. Okay, so she is one of their professor emeritus for ornithology. And these two ladies traveled with me to the Amazon, or I traveled with them, I guess I should say. And they were a huge inspiration in the birding project. And they're also just a huge inspiration and a person to really, or persons that really encouraged me to keep going and to keep planting those seeds. And Christy said in a keynote speech not long ago, and I'm sorry, it's way too many words there, but it was in a world of wars, AI, social media, mass extinctions, corruption, genocide, hatred, and everything else terrible, we must remember our role and value. Environmental educators in all forms are truly the first line leaders of the future. When the world falls apart and people cannot distinguish the truth from a nightmare, there's nothing that can substitute for grass, bare feet on grass. The smell of soil in the woods after rain, the sound of a flicker calling in the trees, and the sight of something amazing that gives us a sense of awe. Teaching ourselves and others about the wonder of the natural world is the most important thing our species can ever endeavor to do. So don't ever forget that. You're so important. You have seeds to sow, and there is fertile ground that can be planted. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna help. Go ahead. And the lucky number is 669230.
Oh, we already have a winner. Yay. Next is our Phyllis U. Hall Wildlife Habitat Preservation Award for development or preservation of habitat that contains significant wildlife and or native plant life populations. And this year's winner is Ryan Smith. To introduce Ryan and present his award, we have Terry Gorney-Lehman. Where's Terry? Oh, okay. All right.
This is Emmerich Smith. This is Ryan's son. And Emmerich's already been on a rare bird alert. His job shadowed dad. And a couple weeks ago, he went and cleaned up trash by the Wabash River in Geneva. So. So we would like to introduce his dad, Ryan Smith. The Friends of the Limberlost were very, okay.
Because it sounds
Okay. In 2022, the spring, the Friends of the Limberlost were very excited when we found out Ryan Smith had taken the position of the East Central Regional Ecologist. I'm proud to say that Ryan and I are both native Fort Waynians, so I knew Ryan a little bit. And he has been awesome in his role. It's not just a job with him, it's a love, it's a passion, and I won't steal any of his thunder because I know he's going to tell you about some of the things he's done the last 3 years. Okay.
Well, good evening. My objective tonight is to kind of share who I am and what I've been doing this last year. I spent a bit of time trying to come up with a title for my presentation, but I didn't get anywhere. So this is what we got. A little bit about me. I am right here, and I have traveled the state extensively for my career. Keep an eye on that red star up there. That's gonna zip all over the map as I talk about where I've been, what I've done. Grew up in Fort Wayne. I was homeschooled with my younger brother. We spent a lot of time out in the woods, looking at trees, flipping over logs, looking for bugs. Pretty common stuff. And as soon as I graduated high school, I went to college. Here's my first big move. Look at that star just zip way down there. Went to Purdue, Fort Wayne. Got my undergraduate and graduate degree there in biology. As soon as I graduated from there, I went to work at Heartland Restoration Services, another big move in my career, about 10 miles that way. At Heartland, I got lots of practical hands-on experience with habitat management, invasive species work, collecting native seed, growing that seed, making seed mixes, putting that seed on the ground, growing the trees, growing the plants, using chainsaws, using tractors, all that fun stuff. I really enjoyed that work and would probably still be there today. Into other than that, my wife and I got married in 2017 and had Emmerich, who you just saw up here, a couple years after that. And we really wanted her to stay home with Emmerich. So I took a step back from natural resources to work as a utility forester. We're living way over here. Like, just look at me zipping all over the state. That was an interesting job. I like doing that, but it wasn't natural resource conservation, and that's what I certainly wanted to do long term. So finally, a position opened up in the DNR, and I accepted a position in 2022 as the East Central Region ecologist. Made the biggest move of my career, way down here to Bluffton. So that's where I'm currently living in Bluffton. Picture here of me on the first day of the job. I was super excited to be there, knowing I was going to be outside, walking trails, planting trees, cutting invasive species every single minute of the day. But it didn't take long for me to realize that that is not what the job entails entirely. I spent a lot of time in the office making presentations like this. I'm quite sad about that. But otherwise, what else do I do when I'm not in the office? I'll tell you about that in the form of a book I read as a kid, unfortunately by Remy Charlip. Fortunately, I do get to take care of nature preserves within the east central part of the state. And I think that's pretty awesome. It's what I've always wanted to do. I get to be outside frequently, and it's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, you can see my region there highlighted in red. I've got 15 counties that I cover from Fort Wayne down to Richmond. Unfortunately, I have over 6,000 acres of nature preserves and conservation easements within that region. That is a lot of land to manage. Fortunately, those properties are owned by a variety of people, of organizations, land trusts, city, county parks, state parks have some nature preserves within their boundaries, fish and wildlife areas. Ball State University actually has a nature preserve just north of here, Ginn Woods. I'm going there next week to look at that property. So fortunately, I don't have to take care of it all myself. Unfortunately, that still leaves me about 1,600 acres that I do manage directly, me and my two staff. So we do the best we can. Most of the area that I take care of, most of those acreages is summed up in the Limberlost Swamp Conservation Area. in southern Adams County, northern Jay County. Historically, in the 1800s, that area was about 13,000 acres of wetlands, swamp, marshlands, as depicted by that gray on the map there. But come the late 1800s, the time that Gene Stratton Porter was in the area writing about the swamps, those areas began to be drained by these big dredges you see in the picture there to get that water out of there, put tile in the ground, make way for agriculture. And the wetlands were almost entirely destroyed at that point in time. But fast forward a little bit to the 1990s, and you see the areas in red on that map. Those are the areas we have protected now. That was started by local farmer Ken Brunswick, buying some land in the Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve, and he and his team have kind of really grown out those acreages to incorporate Limberlost Swamp, Loblolly Marsh, White Oak Cemetery, Rainbow Bend, a bunch of those properties that you heard Chasen talk about. If any of you have experience with restoration areas or even a site that's been disturbed recently, you know that they are magnets for invasive species. So a big portion of what I do is managing habitat for invasive species. Aside from trail maintenance and facilities upkeep and that kind of stuff, invasive species might be the biggest thing I do. My staff and I have covered about 200 acres of invasive species this year. And we had the opportunity to hire out some of that work via contractor to get another 280 acres accomplished this year, which is quite a lot for my region. And the list there is kind of representative of some of the species I deal with on an annual basis. I know it's pretty easy, especially for a group like this, to hate all invasive species. But weirdly, I have a favorite of invasive species. Anybody else have an invasive species they just love to deal with? For me, that is garlic mustard. It is so much fun to pull out. It grows in the early spring. At that point in the year when you're just itching to get out into the field and do something, you've been in the office too long over the winter, and it's green and ready to go. It grows about waist high. You don't even have to bend over. You just grab it, pull it out of the dirt. The roots come out nice and easily, and it even has a nice garlicky smell to it. So garlic mustard is one of those perfect invasive species that I love to deal with. Another type of habitat management we do within nature preserves is prescribed fire. My team and I had the opportunity to participate in a few fires this year. This one here is the Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve. We burnt about 46 acres of prairie and wetland just the last couple weeks, trying to keep those woody species at bay so they don't overtake the prairies and the wetlands. We also this spring went down to Brown County State Park to burn within Whippoorwill Nature Preserve, keep that in Oak Hickory Forest, keep the understory a little bit more open. And I also that spring participated, I don't know what happened in that picture. This spring we went to southern DeKalb County and did some burning with Acres Land Trust. If you were paying attention and at that map, you saw that DeKalb County was not in my region. Please don't tell the Northeast region ecologists, but I snuck into his region for just a day or two. This year, I was able to get some projects accomplished that had been on my plate for a while, with some wetland repairs at both Limberlost and Loblolly. I mentioned that when these properties were initially restored, that we dealt with a lot of drainage ditches that had been dredged out very straight, very deep, very unnatural. So when we restored these properties, we had to build up these big berms to keep water inside the wetland and not allowed to go back out into those drainage ditches. This is the Loblolly Creek here. But as you can see, this levee is not doing its job anymore. So it had been like that for several years, and I was finally able to do something about that this year. As a small side note, the work I do, I don't know if many people can say this for their profession, but the work I do can be appreciated from outer space. So this is satellite imagery of that broken levee before it was repaired. You can see all that soil and water that was leaving the wetland into the Loblolly Creek. We had contractors out this year to get that levee patched up, just put some compacted soil up there, planted native seeds and a seed blanket on top to keep that soil in place. The last thing we're gonna do this dormant season is to plant some willow live stakes on that edge of the bank there to keep that soil in place. I am excited to see how the Limberlost looks this spring once we get a lot of rain, see how much water that's holding. I think you're gonna see that's a pretty common element within this presentation, that there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to seeing how they look in the future. Similar situation at Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve. The levee there had also failed. You can see how much water is in this wetland early spring, but by the summer, all that water had drained out into the Loblolly Creek. So we brought those contractors out, brought some riprap in, some Fleximat and native seed to bring that levee back up to spec and keep the water in the wetland, which at this point had already been dry. But in the spring, I'm looking forward to seeing how it looks. A big project that I was quite excited to accomplish this summer was to restore about a 20-acre ag field immediately adjacent to our White Oak Cemetery Nature Preserve. The White Oak currently is about 20 acres of mature forest. There's some nice plants in there, a couple rare species, but the property right next to it that is also DNR property was an ag field in production up until the end of last year. We went down to the tree nursery, picked up a lot of bare root trees, brought them up, and over the course of 2 very long, very tiring days, we got over 11,000 trees planted in that ag field. And that is thanks to quite a few partners that I had helping me. Other nature preserve regions came over to help with that planting. Staff member from the Limberlost State Historic Site came out, as well as huge shout out to Acres Land Trust, who provided their tractor and this tree planter. Such a cool machine. You got your bare root trees on each side. There's a furrow down there that digs a trench. You plant the bare root trees in there, and those wheels seal up behind those trees, and you can put quite a few trees in at a time. But it still took a long time, long hours. But you know what? I'm really looking forward to seeing how that property looks in the future. Something else that I'm really excited about is acquiring and protecting additional and new habitats. One of the success stories we've had recently is the Friends of the Limberlost were able to acquire about a 10-acre portion of land right next to the Loblolly Marsh Nature Preserve. I went out there with some of them before this property went up for auction and had a chance to poke around and see what was out there. And we actually encountered this Baxter's violet, Viola baxteri, which is a pretty rare plant that's only known in a handful of sites throughout the state. So quite a surprise to find that out there, gave us more incentive to try to acquire that property. And fortunately, we were able to do so. After that inspection and after we had acquired the property, I spent some more time out there and found about 30 plants of this Baxter's violet, and 75 or so hybrids between Baxter's violet and some other violet species. So it was pretty cool to get that land acquired and protected. Nature Preserves also keeps a registry of sites that we want to protect in the future. So I try to keep in contact with those landowners and keep a relationship up and say, hey, you got some cool property. Just want to make sure you recognize that. Maybe we can protect it in the future. So that's another thing I do throughout the year. I spend a fair amount of my time doing various outreach events like this and then other things. One of the things I've done several of throughout the year is weed wrangles. Here you see a big group of the Jay and Adams Habitat Restoration SISMA group. SISMA is Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. Get together and do some invasive species work. So we've got a huge pile of honeysuckle behind us. I've written a few articles about nature stuff. This was published in the Outdoor Indiana magazine. Wrote a couple articles for the Friends of the Limberlost, as well as Indiana Native Plant Society. Seems like every year I lead a guided hike or two at one of my nature preserves. So keep an eye out for those as they're published on the Friends of the Limberlost page and the DNR website. Into the future, what are my hopes? In short, it's more of the same. I feel like we've been doing some good work. I'd love to continue that. Primarily, invasive species management, and other habitat management techniques. These are some pretty cool restoration areas that I'm working with. I'm excited to see how these properties continue to mature as I manage invasive species on them, and I can't wait to see what they look like in the future. Secondarily, I want to continue to acquire, protect, and restore natural areas. Nature preserves has a pretty strong emphasis on protecting those highest of quality natural areas, the remnants that have been there for ages and ages and have some pretty cool plants in them. And there's a lot of value in that, but especially around Limberlost and Loblolly, I see a lot of value in acquiring buffer habitats, the less high quality stuff, and restoring them, just making one mega property out there. Then finally, engaging the public. I think you'll recognize this gentleman here. You heard about that. He put some boot brush signs up on the properties. Was a big help. The properties are great because of that. But I just want to continue to engage the public in ways like that, as well as guided hikes and invasive species weed wrangles and those kind of things. But with that, I think that sums up with what I have. I appreciate the nomination for the award and your time tonight. If there are any questions or comments or complaints, I'd love to take them at this point. In the future. Yes.
Promote finding invasive species, non-invasive species, and everybody should do what they can, but what's the number? So hazardous, how do we tell people about that? I mean,
It's certainly doable. I don't recommend pulling it by hand by any means. If you see it up real well, but I use herbicide. In the spring or late fall, when it's a basil rosette, it's a small little plant, I put some herbicide on there and that takes care of it pretty well. I try to keep my distance.
what herbicide do you use?
So you can use a variety of things. Glyphosate does okay. I'm trying to remember what I've had the most effect with. Trade name is Milestone. I can't remember the active ingredient, but Milestone uses a very, very small concentration and it's super effective on those kind of plants. So that's what I've been using recently. Cool, thank you.
All right, very good. Yes,
Oh, that's right. That's a sheet. 2 in 1. Next one's 2. Well, I won't share it yet. I'll let the introduction.
Next, we have the Richard Green Public Service Award for active involvement in serving the public's environmental interest and concerns. And this year, the awardee is Keith Morris. Mr. Morris. To present Keith is Cheryl Myers.
There you go.
Well, it's fun to finally see Keith dressed up because when we're usually together, it's to clean the river and we are a muddy mess. Keith and his family moved to Anderson in 2009. His grandfather had a cabin in upstate New York and near Lake Champlain, and he was paddling at a young age. Then he grew up in western Pennsylvania near the Conemaugh River. It was terribly polluted in those days. Water stained everything a kind of orange, and there were no fish. This polluted state inspired Keith to become a lifelong river steward. For 28 years, he and his family lived in Harrisonburg, Virginia. The Shenandoah River was nearby, and working solo, he pulled trash out of the river for many years. There weren't as many tires there as we have in the White River. His biggest find was a freshly dumped collection of 200 batteries. He called the Pennsylvania DNR and they found a recycling plant nearby. I don't want to tell any more stories because I'd like for Keith to tell them. Keith Morris.
I'm not a PowerPoint person. I'm sorry. And I don't take a lot of pictures. I did send some pictures to Cheryl.
I love pictures. Just press the space bar.
Okay. This is one that my son took when we were floating down the White River. My dog River with me. He got his name River because we got him right around Thanksgiving time as a little pup. It was a really cold day on Thanksgiving Day. We took a walk down by the river and he jumped in. And my wife said, "Are you going in after him?" And it was a really cold day. I think it was like 18 degrees that day. And it's like, he's going to swim or he's going to die. This is a steep bank. He swam, he got out. We named him River. And unfortunately, River passed away last year. But he was my companion for a long time. Liked to float down the river with us. I am a certified river nut. Like Cheryl said, my grandfather had a cabin on Lake Champlain. That's where we go every summer. And I was just enthralled with the clean water there because where I lived in Western Pennsylvania, lived in a small town outside of Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Steel mills dumped their waste into it. Coal mines turned to orange from abandoned mine drainage. When I grew up there, I would go down and play close to the river. And one time I did fall in. The water was so acidic that by the time I got home, my skin was tingling. My mother was upset because my white t-shirt was orange even after she tried washing it. They did a shock test in 1970 and found 0 species of fish in the Conemaugh River. I'm glad to say today that the river has cleaned up quite a bit. I'm part of Ben Creek Canoe Club there in Johnstown, Pennsylvania still. And I can't remember. I know the last shock test in the 90s that I can remember, there were 27 different species. And the one river I love to paddle that are still in Western Pennsylvania, the Stony Creek, is now a thriving trout stream. There are a lot of tires there. This is a picture from one of our cleanups a couple years ago. The water was actually too high that day, so we actually went into some of the areas, the trails around Anderson, and there was a large homeless community in one of those areas. So I took my gator in there, and I forget how many loads we hauled out that day. Several tons of trash that we hauled out from there. This is a blue heron that I was floating down the river one day. Can't remember when it was, probably fall the year. it was cool that day. And I had a load of trash in my canoe. And I got close to the Scatterfield Bridge in Anderson. And I noticed this heron along the shore. And its one wing was hanging down. So I came home and got my son and daughter-in-law. I said, I need your help. I called the game commission and they said, you can catch them. There's a wildlife rehabilitation place down by Westfield. If you can catch it, he said, when you go to catch it, make sure you have gloves on, face mask. So I got my tree cutting helmet on, put that on, my welding gloves, threw a blanket over it, caught it, put it in a dog kennel, took it down to the rehab center down there. And so hopefully they were able to take care of that bird. But I just love the river. And when we first moved here in 2009, I just couldn't believe how much trash was in the White River. That first year we moved here in July, and the White River Watchers was doing a cleanup that month. I happened to be walking through the park when they said they were doing this cleanup. So I just went home and got my canoe and started floating down the river. That first year I went by myself, I pulled out 37 tires. That's a drop in a bucket. I think that year we pulled like well over 200 tires. My personal record in one day, I pulled a little over 100. There's a lot less tires in the river now than there was. People say, are people throwing these tires in the river? There's some people still throwing them in. I mean, when you buy a new set of tires, you're paying a fee to dispose of your tires. Why you want to keep your old tires and then throw them in the river, I have no idea. But the bulk of the tires we're pulling out are still from the 70s and back. I mean, I'm still pulling tires that I know were on cars in the 30s and 40s. There's some old ones. This is a trip that I take almost every summer, put on by conservation place in western Pennsylvania. We start in the Stony Creek River, come through Johnstown. There's flood walls in Johnstown, Pennsylvania still. This section is in the flood wall there. No, this section was actually Salzburg. My son there is in the middle. My brother is in the orange shirt, and I'm in the blue. I have one of my nephews, great nephews, in my boat, and my brother has another one in his. This is about a 45-mile trip over 4 days, close to 50 miles. And this would be on the Saturday trip. We start in the Stony Creek River, go through the Conemaugh River. The Stony Creek and the Little Conemaugh come together in Johnstown. And then the Loyal Handle joins it in Salzburg, Pennsylvania. It becomes the Kitsamonga River, and the Kitsamonga joins the Allegheny, close to Pittsburgh. So I don't pull as much trash there, but I do end up. I usually try to find something. I'm always finding trash in the river, it seems like. I used to be a big fisher person, but now I like pulling trash a lot better. This was a cleanup from this past year, Lapel girls volleyball team. They did a phenomenal job. I forget how many tires we pulled that day, but this is just a small portion of what we pulled out that day. I'm not a picture taker. Cheryl or someone else took this picture. I'm loading the trash up. But this is a section real close to Mound State Park. So this is another part of the trip in western Pennsylvania, right below the Conemaugh Dam outside of Blairsville, Pennsylvania. The photo with the fellow with the little life jacket on. This is my neighbor, Brody. And he likes to go fishing. Ever since he was a little kid, he would always asked me when we can go down to the creek. So one year I gave him a pair of tongs he saw my trash tongs that I pulled stuff out with. And I like to do a New Year's Day paddle every year. And so I just asked Brody if he wanted to go along that year, and he said, sure. And I had just given him the new trash tongs, and I didn't even take mine that day. It was a colder day, and Brody came with his tongs. All that trash in the canoe is what Brody pulled out that day. I paddled that day, and Brody pulled the trash. When we got on shore there, it's at Rivers Bend Park, and we kind of filled our canoe probably 4 times over. I filled the back of my truck with trash that was left there at the takeout spot. The photo beside is Brody and another one of my neighbors, Josiah, and they like to come down to the river. You know, both those boys like to come down the river. So one day I said, you know, let's take the gator and run down there. And we picked up a bunch of trash, and we filled the gator a couple different times. I took a picture of them. So a little bit of what Diane said, I'm planting seeds. I was glad that photo was in there because, you know, that's a hard act to follow, let me tell you. But, you know, we all live downstream, and, you know, just like I say, I used to fish all the time, and now it's occasionally I might take a fishing pole, but I'm always pulling trash out because it just bugs me when I see trash in the river. All I can say is thank you very much. You got any questions?
Oh, I. Oh, Rachel. All right, lucky number is 669-214.
Anybody?
Sure, it's Cheryl.
Okay.
It's Ray, not Reagan.
It's Cheryl.
Number
No,
think it's her.
no,
Oh,
I lost mine.
669-214.
Oh, I had 215. You know what?
I think we're gonna go again.
Yeah.
Not wrong. That's my favorite bite right there, not Taylor.
John Taylor.
All right, 669-220. Oh, 669-220.
Do we have a winner? Doris.
Hey, we got one.
All right. Okay, for our final presentation, the Robert H. and Esther L. Cooper Conservation Award. This is our chapter's highest honor. It is given to recognize overall contributions to conservation and appreciation for the natural environment. To introduce Cheryl and present her award, Barb Stedman.
Do this first? No, yeah, do that. We'll do this first. There we go. Well, I hope I'm not going to step on your toes too much, Cheryl, but I do want to say a few things about you. So, as many of you in the room know, Cheryl Myers has been a force of nature, literally, for more than 50 years in East Central Indiana. As a student here at Ball State University, she helped create the university's very first Earth Day celebration back in 1969. And that's an event that is still going strong today. And I'm there for just about every single Earth Day celebration in April each year. And we always say, yes, Cheryl Myers is the person who started this. So we honor your name every year. Then, as a teacher of biology and environmental science at Anderson's Highland High School for 31 years, she started a student environmental action club and recycling program, and she took students to destinations to the US and abroad, much like Diana, where they could study specialized ecosystems firsthand. Her dedicated work as a teacher made lasting impacts on thousands of former students, some of whom are in the room here tonight. More recently, Cheryl has made her mark on East Central Indiana by co-founding two different organizations. First, White River Watchers, which has sponsored 1 or 2 annual community cleanups of the river in Madison County over the past 20 years. And I know Cheryl will be telling plenty of stories about that organization, so I'll leave that to her, but she should tell you certainly that she's serving once again as president. And then in 2015, she helped co-found the Heart of the River, an organization dedicated to protecting the White River and Mound State Park by opposing a plan to dam the river near downtown Anderson. Now, if those organizations weren't enough to keep Cheryl busy in retirement, she also became a founding board member of the Red Tail Land Conservancy in 1999 and currently serves as secretary. In more recent years, she became the naturalist for Anderson Parks and Recreation, organizing a summer science camp for youth there, and served as a seasonal naturalist at Mound State Park. And finally, for nearly a decade, she has co-written a very popular weekly column called On Nature for the Anderson Herald Bulletin newspaper. All of those, again, many of you in this room are among those, all of those who have worked with Cheryl in any of these endeavors can tell you about the tremendous impact she's had in East Central Indiana. Kim Rogers Hatfield, the secretary of White River Watchers, wrote that Cheryl's vision and determination have mobilized countless volunteers, expanded educational outreach, and created measurable, lasting impacts for the White River. Through her leadership, she has not only improved the quality of the White River, but also inspired others to take ownership of their role in its conservation. And Julie Boardman, executive director of the Red Tail Land Conservancy, said that Cheryl's lifelong passion for protecting and celebrating our natural world is contagious, inspiring countless people to deepen their own connection with nature. Her lifelong work embodies the values that define the Cooper Conservation Award, and she sets an inspiring example of how individual commitment can shape a future where land, water, and wildlife are treasured and protected. And so for these and many other reasons, our chapter is proud to name Cheryl Myers the recipient of our 2025 Robert and Esther Cooper Conservation Award. Cheryl? I don't know what to say really, but thank you so much. I am losing my voice. Well, I think you can understand me, okay? I don't know what, I'm just kind of blown away, but I appreciate your recognition. And I want to recognize a few people. John Taylor out there, who helped me grade leaf collections and was an authority as far as I was concerned. I'd consult with him, my student, about what a tree was. And I want to say hi to Tom and Bobby and Carol, who taught me how to dive. Oh, thank you. That was a whole new world you opened up for me. And see who else? Jeff Ray, Mr. Blue River watershed guy, who we remove tires, Jeff plants trees and trees and trees and trees. So, I mean, there were some, oh, thanks, some real powerhouse folks in here that I am humbled to be here with. The only thing special I did was just keep going. These guys, I have to say, this presentation is going to be a little heavy on philosophy. Sorry, but you know, I'm 76 and I'm looking back thinking, well, the sands of the hourglass running through, who has really affected me the most in my life? Well, here's a short list. Gifford Pinchot, made a song up about him once. With Gifford Pinchot, the trees will grow. He was our first professional forester, and he brought an ethic to the U.S. Forest Service that we didn't have. Our whole concept of natural resource use was slash and burn, use it up, cut it down. And then Aldo Leopold, he took it a step further, and I'll share with you what he brought to the table in the world of conservation. And Chief Seattle and Albert Einstein, I challenge you, what do they have in common? You will find out. And Margaret Mead understood totally that a small group of dedicated people can change the world, and they're the only force that ever has. Bill Moyers, I still miss him to this day. He was an activist Quaker like me. And I think when you look back over your life, you do begin to see how those spiritual values you learned as a young person just keep manifesting. And Mary Oliver, perhaps the greatest naturalist poet of our time. So where did this drive come from to drop absolutely everything I'm doing to work on an environmental project? Well, the lake. I really have to put it down to this marvelous group of lakes in northern Indiana, the Barbee Lakes. There's Coon, Irish, Little Barbee, Seacrest Sawmill, and Grassy Creek that goes all the way through to Lake Tippy. This in the middle is Matter Park, a I would call it a Depression era park, built in part by the CCC, and it is still there on the banks of the Mississinawa. The lake, it's hard to know how deeply this inspired me as a kid. The water was crystal clear back then. You could go all the way down Grassy Creek and look straight to the bottom, and it was sandy and gravelly. We could see bluegill and bass. We could hear the bass grab a fly through the lily pad. They could be underwater and see the fly, and they'd pop it. You could hear them eating on an early morning when we were fishing. We learned the names of things with great pleasure. This is Seacrest. It's on the Barbee chain, and we had a perfect view of the sunset every night. And that was our cottage. It really is a cottage. It was all knotty pine inside, and the basement was a very simple shower and a refrigerator for beer and bait. And we had the little fishing boat and then a faster boat, but I wanted to live there. I wanted to move there and just live there for the whole rest of my life, kind of still do. And there was no radio, there was one radio, no phones, no TV, and there was a Rand McNally Nature Atlas. And I loved it. I went through every page of that all by myself, just learning the names of stuff. And this was when I decided I was going to save my money and get a mask so I could go underwater and see what was going on. And I watched the males drive the other males away and females swim over the bluegill beds. I watched clams in those days. There were lots of freshwater mussels, and they would drag their clunky body along with their muscular foot and make these dizzy trails in the sand. And then I'd make my friends go on biology field trips, and we would go slowly through the cattails, just looking for anything that was moving. It was a real thrill to find a turtle on a log. The other big influence was my church. And I have to say, the Quaker values of wise use of gifts, responsibility to the future, simple living, social justice, and environmental care. I learned those values. I took them into my heart, and they still motivate me today. And my dad graduated from Purdue right in the middle of the Depression with a degree in forestry. So boom, he had a job. And he went to work over by what is now Shades State Park, planted trees around the entrance and supervised some of the work. Do any of you have a copy of this? Yay! It's a wonderful book. It's still a wonderful book. It's 50 Trees of Indiana. And my dad kind of made me learn all these trees. Really glad he did too. There, you can get one on eBay if you don't have one and you'd like one. And then I went to Highland High School. It was a high school back then. And I was thinking as we were listening to the talk about seeds, I relate so much to all the things you can do with kids. They're enthusiastic and the parents get involved too. Stewardship is, in a way, it's kind of the notion that human beings may have more power than we think we actually do, that we can actually control the way people in the rest of the world use resources, but we can all do many simple things. And that's my garden there in the middle. We can all plant native plants and foster them every year, add more to the garden, and don't buy petunias, don't buy geraniums. I mean, a few of them are wonderful, but they have very little native wildlife value. And I have a few, but the bulk of our gardens need to feed pollinators. They need to be useful. So I look at this picture and realize how far we've come in farming technology, but still stewardship means in the farming world, it can mean using good conservation practices, rotating your crop, leaving a little bit of a fence row, leaving a little bit of nature behind so that wildlife has a place to hide and thrive and reproduce. And here's Gifford Pinchot. He's an American, he was born here, but he studied conservation and forestry in France. And he came back and brought a lot of those ideas with him. And FDR, Teddy wrote, he was in on the ground level of our conservation movement and brought the idea of sustainability into our consciousness. Don't use it all up. Leave enough for the next generation. He really started the U.S. Forest Service. And we have a bridge in Anderson, some of you may know, that fell in the big flood of, was it 1913? The big flood that took out bridges left and right. And the reason we had that flood is because we cut all the trees down on the banks that were holding them in place. And Pinchot knew that although it seemed like we'd never run out of resources in this country, ever, we would. And he brought modern forestry in this country. But here's my man. This is Aldo Leopold. I wish I could have known him. He taught at the University of Wisconsin in later years. In his early years, he was a wildlife manager in the Southwest. And he wrote this book, Sand County Almanac. I can almost choke up just thinking about how this book changed my life. He talked about shooting a wolf and watching it die and realizing he could never shoot another wolf. He realized that wolves were keeping the grazing animals in balance with the food supply. and you kill all the wolves, you're gonna have erosion, and that's exactly what happened. He came back to Wisconsin, bought a farm. You can go up and see his place. His cabin's in Baraboo, Wisconsin. And it was a pilgrimage for me to go there and see where he took his family in the summers. And they restored there. That's his shack. He called it his shack. They restored this old farm that had nothing left after the Dust Bowl era. It was like a little Dust Bowl in central Wisconsin. And he actually had the audacity to say, we are not the apex of all creation. The earth wasn't created just for man to use any way he wanted to. We are a part of the web of life. We are dependent on it for our survival. And what we do to the land, we do to ourselves. That's what I just said there. He and Chief Seattle and Albert Einstein all arrived at the same epiphany that we are not all that. Human beings are a part of the whole web of life that, I mean, we would cease to exist without the bacteria doing their job and the fungi doing their job and everybody else doing their job. He would be considered a real tree hugger today. And that's him in later years. There's our Chief Seattle who said, we do not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. And the same thing Einstein said in his later years. He wrote a letter that's famous now. When it appears in the New York Times. He said, a human being is spatially and temporarily limited, a piece of the whole, what we call universe. We experience ourselves and our feelings as separate from everybody else, but that's an illusion, because we are not separate from each other. And if you really take that to heart, that would be the end of all our world wars. We really could wrap our mind around that. So the first part of this talk was really about stewardship. But now I want to talk about activism. And I've got my t-shirts out here, and I almost called this talk My Life as a T-shirt Slogan, because you take an idea and you get a group of people that are believing in the same idea you do, and you can start a not-for-profit, you can raise money, you can get a grant, you can go door to door like I did for the White River Watchers. Hello, we're raising money for a cleanup. and pretty soon you get people like Jack Henrik say, well, my business will kick in a little bit for you. How much do you need this time? And there's more support in the community than you know until you get out there. When we started the White River Watchers, it was disgusting. We were walking along the river looking at tires, car parts. There was an old washer and dryer junk lying there, plastic, styrofoam. And how can you take a walk, Lois, where you live? How do you walk along the river while you're looking at everybody's trash? And Irv and Lois were at our very first cleanup when we got 230 tires that day. And slowly but surely, we quit counting at 7,000 tires. We quit. That was 2,000 tires ago at least. And we're still doing 1 or 2 cleanups a year when we can. And Keith is there with his gator or his whatever tool we need, he can round it up. So, what seed are you planting? Which role would you play? as an activist, there are advocates. They communicate. There's like that would be Christy and her daughter Tiffany who are here. They are great communicators. Somebody has to be a good communicator when you've got a project. Another role is like you're a helper. You talk to people who have financial resources. You navigate that one. I'm the organizer. I like to bring people together to do stuff. And then there's the rebel who, they'll protest. John Lewis was a rebel as he was trying to raise awareness about civil rights. So there's these 4 roles were delineated by Bill Moyers, who was another good Quaker activist. And he's passed away now, but oh my gosh, he wrote The Power of Myth, and he had a series on TV. He was the press secretary for President Johnson, and he was very serious about promoting peace, because peace is the best thing for the environment that we can do. So never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. In 1999, I'll refresh your memory, Guide Lamp was going out of business, and they were going out of the electroplating business. And so somebody in their wastewater treatment area said, let's just put the rest in the river. No one will ever know. So they released tons, hundreds of thousands of gallons of this chemical called DMDK. It wiped out our sewage treatment plant, wiped it out, and killed every fish between Anderson and Indianapolis. And some of you may remember that. And it was the dead of winter. It was December 6th when the release happened. And these dead fish began showing up on the banks of the river. 113 tons is what they estimated were killed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I thought, that's the worst thing that could ever happen. But it ended up not being the worst thing. The settlement gave $14 million to the citizens of our watershed to restore and restock the river with fish, build boat launches, build environmental study areas, stabilize banks, put conservation easements on property, and it knitted together people from Indianapolis to Muncie. People I had never met. Suddenly we were on a first name basis with the people in Noblesville and Indianapolis. And we ended up having, in the end, a healthier fishery because of the fish kill. I call it the silver lining effect. What you think might be the worst thing that could happen ends up being a pretty good thing in ways you didn't see. And then here's this. This is our pretty catchy slogan. In 2010, a group of folks at the Anderson Area Leadership Academy were brainstorming ways to revitalize Anderson. And we need some revitalizing. And they said, I know, let's build a dam on the river. And then we can have this beautiful lake, and people's property values all around the lake will skyrocket. People will come from all over to use the reservoir. They can have their families use the water. We'll have boat launches, and our little group of people were going, no, it would flood a third of Mound State Park. It would flood a number of abandoned dumps, but to this day, we don't know what's there. The old Mounds Mall would have been flooded. Some other chemical dumps that were unmarked and unnamed would have been flooded with drinking water. Not to mention having to move the whole water delivery system for the city, the sewers. It was a nightmare, but it had momentum. The movers and shakers of Anderson were all behind it. And so, once again, the small group of dedicated people, a small group of us got together and began to have educational panel discussions. We got expertise from DNR to come, from native plant groups, green groups all over the state. League of Women Voters of Muncie saved our bacon because they pointed out that Muncie and Yorktown would get the butt end of the reservoir where there were a lot of dead trees and standing stagnant water. And is that really what people of Yorktown wanted in their backyard? And it was a very exciting fight. Gerald will tell you, night after night after night, I was writing letters, organizing panel discussions, and we came up with a wonderful slogan. Don't you think? Our river, don't damn it, don't damn it, damn. So our sign was a lot better than their sign. And then we got people all over town to put the sign up. And my friend Pat Seitz, who was almost 80 years old, I have a picture of her walking around with a sign. And she said it was one of the most exciting things I ever did, was participate in that effort to stop an ill-advised dam that really didn't make any sense. And there's still rumblings about the dam, but for now, it seems to be dormant. That's what we hope. And as I just wanted to, this slide's out of order, I'm sorry, but it brings to mind that as when I was teaching, I wanted a marine biology class to happen in central Indiana. And it did, thanks to the Boy Scouts, because the school said, oh no, this is a little too risky. I don't think the school can sponsor this trip. So I said, well, okay, we'll be an explorer post. And we were. The Boy Scouts backed us to the hilt. They covered us, our liability insurance was covered. And we were an explorer post for a couple of years. And it was wonderful. So the lesson is, people are going to throw roadblocks up at you. You just go around them. You just figure out a way to go around them and still get the job done. And sometimes we have to get politically involved because the people in Indianapolis and the people in Washington are making decisions that are affecting our natural resources and the integrity of the environment. So in a way that is within the rules, that is lawful, that is respectful, sometimes you just have to raise your voice in a different arena. So here's what we do. We pay attention, we be astonished, and then we tell people about it. Belize is one place that I got to take students. I just felt like it was the privilege of my life. There's one of our early cleanups. We got what is that, girl? Is that a propane? What is that?
That's an oil barrel, 2 pounds, 275 gallon oil.
Nice. Just where it needed to be, right there in the river. And it didn't matter if it was rainy, cold, muddy, it just didn't matter. We were out there doing cleanups. And people have fun. People build community doing these cleanups. And there's the original board of Red Tail. Look at those faces. I mean, I see Charles Mortensen, Barry Banks, of course, is there, Brian, the basketball player. the tall guy in the back row on the far left, he was a big star for Muncie Central.
Ron Bonham.
Who?
Ron Bonham.
Yeah, Ron Bonham. He had one of our early conservation easements. And that little group has catapulted itself. Julie could just reel out all these statistics into a first-class, professionally run, solvent, active organization. So proud to be a part of that. And I see John Taylor's here. He's the president of the board. And Julie's here, the executive director. And Jack's here, Mr. Lawnmower Guy. And he does an awful lot of work on volunteer property maintenance here. And that's just a little bit of what we have done as an organization. In Muncie, people know about red tail. In Anderson, not so much. It's not based in Anderson, so we don't have too many properties yet, but we're working on it. So here we all are. We're all activists in our own way, whether we take reusable bags to the grocery or plant native plants or get involved politically. It is incumbent on us to do something. We cannot be observers. We cannot be armchair observers. Oh, who are those people? Well, this is a really hot summer day. Is that Ginwoods? Is that Ginwoods, John? Hard to tell, but we take opportunities to go see some of these beautiful protected natural areas that we have. And I will leave you with, yeah, beautiful. And then I ran out of time, so thank you. I'll bet you're glad. I'm gonna pass this around so everybody can see one of these. It's beautiful. I wanted to pass it around. Yeah.
I think everyone will agree that that was a real inspiring lineup of honorees. Thank them all very, very much. And one last round of applause. Please feel free to mingle. Please take more food from the tables because they just throw it out. So take some food. If you're not a member of Robert Cooper already, there are brochures. There's a sign-up list if you'd like to be on our email list. There are 2 Christmas bird counts coming up on the 1st of the new year in up by the Limberlost is the Sanjo count, and our count is the 7th, I think. The 3rd. Whoa, what a bad president. The 3rd of January. So see our website for more information. Thank everybody for coming, and formal presentation is almost over. Oh, the formal presentation is over, but we would like all the awardees to come together for a group photo with their plaques, please. And Martha will get a photo of you all.